Hi, students. I just wanted to go over population density independent versus dependent and help you with that activity a little bit because this can be very confusing. I'm just going to give you a few personal tips of what I think about. You may think of it a little differently, but whatever helps you. But I just find that this is a little confusing sometimes for students. So density independent factors. So this is when the population does not matter. So the population could be very spread out for this one, is sort of how I think about it. So things that are going to affect that population, whether it's spread out or not, are the things on the following slides, like abiotic factor. So temperature, precipitation, sunlight is going to affect the population, whether it's very dense, density dependent, or independent of that. So it's going to affect all those people in that area. Human activities are huge. They're going to, things like pollution, deforestation is cutting down a lot of trees. It really doesn't matter how many organisms are in that forest. Whatever amount is in that forest is going to be affected by deforestation. Does that make sense? Natural disasters, again, fires, earthquakes, tornadoes, those are things, they don't matter how many people. Whatever is in the path of the tornado will be affected, whether it is a dense population or not. Now, density dependent. So again, we're thinking of dense populations that are pretty large. When I'm thinking about a human population like this, I think of New York City. There are a ton of people. You can see kind of in the background the picture of New York City. There's lots of people there, right? So this would count for people and also other animals and plants, right? So competition is going to be higher if the population is dense. So more animals are going to fight over food, water, shelter, and space if there's a lot of them in a small area. Predation, predator prey. So I think of like a very specific example. Let's say a lion is doing the hunting, right? So if a lion comes into an area where there are a lot of cattle, let's say, the chances are they're going to get one of those cattle more if the population is, they're all there and dense. If they're more spread out, right, it's going to be harder for the lion to eat their prey. Does that make sense? So predation is affected by dense populations. Kind of the same thing as parasitism, right? So parasites are going to be able to affect more of the population if the population is dense a lot in one area. Same thing with disease, specifically people, right? As we know with the pandemic this year, if there's lots of people in an area, it's more likely that's going to spread among those people. Whereas if we're spread out and we're social distancing, it's not going to spread as easily. So here is your activity, and I thought I would just go through a few of these and sort of explain what I think of. So a cheetah runs very fast to catch a gazelle. So again, this is density dependent because, again, if there are more gazelles grouped together, there's lots of them, the density is higher, they're going to be able to catch a gazelle easier. Kudzu, which is a vine, can grow around trees and starve them of sunlight. So it's a parasite. So this is parasitism. So this is going to be density dependent. So basically you can go back in the slides and see where one falls based on the slides. If you determine what it is, like for that one, I determined that was parasitism. So I could go back in the slides and look, okay, parasitism is density dependent. So that's what I'm going to choose on my activity. Many dogs have fleas. The fleas will bite and feed on the dog's blood. Again, this is parasitism, so this is density dependent. Sorry, I'm about to sneeze. The infectious disease typhus spreads quickly in unsanitary conditions. Again, if there's more people in an area, that's going to spread quickly or quicker. So that's going to be density dependent. So another way of thinking of this is dependent is, does the density matter? Dependent would be yes. Independent would be no, right? So if it's independent of density, then the population density doesn't matter. Pine trees from a forest in North Carolina are cut down and used for lumber. There they're describing deforestation, which is a human activity that's going to impact that ecosystem no matter what the population living there is. A brown bear catches and eats a salmon during a salmon run. That's going to be predation, so predator-prey relationship, which is density dependent. Plastic discarded by people has accumulated in the Pacific Ocean. That's going to be a human activity, pollution. That's going to affect all populations, whether they are dense or not. So that's independent. A 6.8 magnitude earthquake has caused a tsunami in the Philippines. This is a natural disaster. If you go back in the slides, natural disaster is going to be under density independent. That tsunami, that earthquake is going to affect whoever and whatever populations are in that area, whether they are dense or not. The climate of Alaska is usually fairly cold with morning temps around 40 to 50 degrees. So they're describing the temperature or the weather, which is going to be independent of density. So that weather is going to affect whoever is in that area, whether it's a large population, a dense population or not. Hilo, Hawaii gets a lot of rain, whereas the western side of the Big Island is much drier. Again, weather is an abiotic factor, so that's going to be density independent. Areas of higher elevation have more direct sunlight and tend to be warmer. Again, sunlight, temperature, weather is independent. It's an abiotic factor that we're talking about. It's going to affect whatever population is in that area. And then the amount of grass available for herbivores to graze on has decreased. So grass is decreasing. This is a food issue. So anytime we're talking about food or a food chain, we're going to be talking about density dependent. In this case, it's not it's not an animal, but it's grass and it is still living. But the population does matter if there's a lot of grass in the area or not. So that is density dependent. I hope those explanations helped a little bit. I hope you listened to what I was saying instead of just, moving over the check marks, because I think that will help you kind of understand a little bit. Hopefully my thinking sort of helps you with that. Good luck. If you have any other questions, your teacher is happy to help. Just reach out to them. Have a good day.